Hello, everybody. Welcome to Finding the Solution, episode 3. And today's episode is called Changing Lives. And it's important that we have an impact on other people's lives as well as our own. It's important that we're trying to change people's lives on a daily basis. It's quite close to my heart, changing people's lives. When I walked into recovery, I remember somebody saying to me, freely give back what was freely given to you. And that's always stuck with me. It's always stuck with me. So today, episode 3, changing lives. Turn that attitude into gratitude, So I'm gonna do something slightly different today. I am gonna do a gratitude list for you today. And I do this every single morning. I send a gratitude list to my sponsor. And I haven't forgot a single gratitude since I've been in recovery. Well, since I've been sponsored, that's a lie. Since I've been sponsored. So I'm going to do a gratitude list today. And one of the mottos I have is attitude into gratitude. See the truth through the lies. See what's right in front of us. And I'm going to start it off with a gratitude list. I am grateful for changing lives. The people within Changing Lives, there's a lovely guy you're going to meet soon called Mike Carr, but I'm full of gratitude around Mike for his help, for his patience, his determination, and also his approach to life. So my first one is a massive ball of gratitude going out to Mike, and he's helped me on every step of the way of opening this CIC and being able to podcast. Mike's number 1. Number 2 is going to be clean and sober today. You know, every day is an absolute blessing. Every day I wake up and I'm baffled. Some days I'm like, I'm clean and sober today. And, you know, it's coming up to 3.5 years, but I stay in the 24, I stay in the day. And today is a beautiful, wonderful day. A day right in front of me and a day that I get to grab hold of and be the best version of myself this day. And, another day clean and sober. What a wonderful, wonderful life, Number 3 is going to be peace. I don't have peace 24/7. But I get to work on my peace. I get to meditate. I get to work my 12-step program. I get to try and be the best version of myself. I get to sit down and see when I'm wrong. I get to be accountable. I get to be reliable. And all that stuff brings me peace. And I never, ever had peace. I'm not going to lie. I'd love to be able to say I've always been peaceful, but I haven't. Until I worked the 12-step program and until I started meditating, started putting some action into my life. And peace is a wonderful, wonderful gift. A wonderful gift. And, we stay in the 24, we stay in the day. And if I get to put my head on that pillar tonight, clean and sober, I get to start again tomorrow. And I get to find my peace again tomorrow. And I don't really can hear it in my voice, but that bit really, really touches me that I find peace today. Number 4 is going to be the Rooms of Recovery, sponsees, the whole shebang. I'm not going to name any recovery. I'm not going to name any people. But, there's a proper chain. My sponsor is sponsored by somebody else. He's sponsored by somebody else. I have sponsees. They're sponsoring people. But just being able to walk in them rooms and be open, honest, truthful, to be able to sit and not be afraid, to be able to sit and be open and face my fears with courage. And I'm truly, truly grateful for every single person that walks in them rooms. They inspire me. Every single one of them inspires me. Every single one of them is a miracle. Every single one of them deserves to live life on life's terms. And, that wonderful 12-step program is a design for living. And I'm grateful to... There's a wonderful guy called Bill W. And all the stories in the back of the book. And, I'm not going to go too deep into the 12-step program, but it was probably the greatest decision I ever made was to walk into the Rooms of Recovery. Man. And I don't even know what number I'm on now. See? Do you know what? Whenever I start talking about gratitude, and it's funny, but I can feel it filling inside me. I can feel that hole in my soul filling. Do you know what? I'm going to talk. My next one is going to be Garson, my guide dog. He's a friggin' wonderful animal, you know. He really is. He's a beautiful, beautiful animal. He brings me so much joy. When we go out and he's harnessed up and he's a guide dog, he's phenomenal. He baffles me at how clever he is. He's also quite tipsy as well. He has this lovely trot that he does when he's working. He's a beautiful, beautiful creature, and he's also my mental health dog. I know he was given to me as a guide dog, but he brings so much more. I think he feeds off my emotions and my feelings and knows. So Garson, yeah. And I don't even know what number I'm on, but I'm gonna add one more, and that is being able to see the truth through the lies, being able to see what's right in front of me, loved ones, family, friends, being able to not try and control stuff that I'm not in control of, but control stuff I am. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful gift. So, listen, I do this every morning. I do a gratitude list, and it changes my life. It really does. But I also come across people who inspire me, and these two guys who are gonna do an interview with. First of all, you're going to meet Mike, and then we're going to do an interview. Mike's going to run the interview as well, if me and Fred allow him to. Me and Fred can talk for England. So, yeah, I'm going to introduce you to Mike first of all. Mike Carr, what a wonderful person. Inspires me and continues to inspire me on a daily basis. And, Mike's going to introduce you to me and Fred. But episode 3, here we go, guys. Here we go. I'm going to introduce you to Mike.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike Carr and I am the Changing Lives Manager here at Crisis, and I'm here to tell you about the Changing Lives programme. So Changing Lives is a programme which supports people with lived experience of homelessness into employment, and we do that through a variety of different ways. We provide funding and support so people can access employment opportunities. People might come to the Changing Lives programme and be looking for funding for a qualification, and we can support them with that funding. Many people come through the Changing Lives programme and start up their own business, and so we provide them with the tools, startup costs, and tailored support in order to help them with that. And other people might need some tools or equipment in order to access workplace, and the Changing Lives programme is here to support them with funding for that. But I think the key thing about Changing Lives is it's so much more than just money, it's so much more than just grants. We provide all sorts of wraparound support for people, and that comes in various different forms. We provide a lot of tailored support to people to meet them, understand their needs and meet their needs wherever they are. And that means we provide sort of mentoring opportunities, business coaching opportunities. We provide workshops on all sorts of different areas. Recent workshops have included essential business planning ideas, and how to use AI effectively, how to build a personal brand. Our network of people ranges from long-time entrepreneurs who've got loads of experience in entrepreneurship and have set up their own businesses and volunteer for the program, through to people from our partners at Lloyds Banking Group who run support to staff our mentoring program, providing people coming through the Changing Lives program with experience and a sounding board and an opportunity to learn and develop their ideas. We also have lots of external partnerships. So we work with the NHS Clinical Entrepreneurship Programme and Makerversity to provide people with opportunities to develop and hone their skills in various different ways, and provide people with a network that perhaps they didn't have before. But I think the thing about employment programs is the support is crucial. It's not just about the money, it's about the support. Employment obviously provides people with income and can save the government and local services up to £25,000 a year by getting people back into work. But I think that's almost the easy way of looking at employment programs. One of the key things and one of the crucial things that I think we should look at when we're talking about employability, especially when we're talking about the employment of people who are routinely excluded and marginalised, is the support that employment opens up to people. It opens up a network. It tells people that you belong here, that you're skilled, that you're valuable, and that you belong and should be included. It gives people the opportunity to interact with diverse people from different backgrounds that perhaps they might not have come into contact with before. And it gives people an opportunity to be creative and to really be valued and be able to demonstrate their value. And so I think when we look at changing lives, we look at it in that all-encompassing way. It supports people to get stability in their lives, and it treats them with dignity and respect. But it's also about giving people wider opportunities in society, giving them a part to play in their community, and being alongside them, working with the people that come through the program, so it can give them the best opportunities. This podcast is obviously Finding the Solution, and it is Ray's podcast. Ray is a Changing Lives participant, and so that's the connection we have with Ray. We help support Ray to set up the podcast and his CIC, so delivering gold into schools. And I'm really excited to be working with Ray. I think it's a wonderful thing to be doing that he's doing, and it's been a really exciting journey to support him. I really am excited to see how far it can go. Okay, hi everyone, thanks so much and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Mike, I'm the Changing Lives Manager, and today I'm really pleased to be here with Ray and Fred. I'm going to introduce them in a minute, but first I thought I'd just give you a bit of background into the Changing Lives programme. So the Changing Lives programme has been running for over 20 years, and it's been giving people the tools, so people experiencing homelessness, the tools, funding and support they need to move on from homelessness and to enter employment. It's about more than just getting somebody a job. Obviously, a job's really important, provides stability and opportunities to people, but I think employment is about building confidence, skills and a sense of belonging. And the Changing Lives programme provides grants to people, it provides tailored coaching opportunities, it provides mentoring, workshops, and in the 20 years it's been running, we've supported over 3,500 people and actually provided grants amounting to more than £3 million. In recent years, we've been supported by Lloyds Banking Group, which has been phenomenal support, and it's meant that we've actually been able to provide close to £300,000 in grants to crisis members, people experiencing homelessness, and to delivery partners as well. And we can talk about that a little bit more later. Come the end of this year, we're probably going to be reaching about 1,000 hours of wraparound support since the partnership began as well. So it's a program that's helped people become personal trainers, florists, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and Ray here is obviously CIC director, founder director. And I think that's where the real magic is in the stories like Ray's. So he's managed to turn the challenge of sight loss into a mission to bring inclusive sport into and podcasting into schools. And I'm going to start introducing you then, Ray. I think the best thing to do would be to for you maybe just to tell us a little bit about that journey, why you decided to set up the CIC, and then I'll move on to Fred and ask some questions to Fred. So yeah, over to you, Ray.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you. What Mike's not telling you is the amazing support he does give in the background. He makes this so accessible for me. As he's just mentioned, I have sight loss. This is changing lives, but it's also making my dreams reality as well. This is stuff that I only dreamt about. And without the people in the background like Mike, this stuff just doesn't become real. My journey started, a couple of years ago, walking into crisis, being homeless, sort of hitting all them barriers, knocking on them doors and no one answering. And I remember walking into crisis, and somebody mentioned the Changing Lives grant. And at first, I wanted to become a counsellor. And I found it very, very difficult very quickly because some of the books they were asking me to read weren't accessible for me. And I remember having a conversation with you, Mike, saying, I believe there's something inside me that's saying that I can help more than just a couple of people. And it was that like sort of wanting to become a local councillor, maybe an MP. But I'm not sure how that journey will unfold. But that still lives inside me. But I remember having a conversation with you and saying, you know, I'm visually impaired, but the massive thing for me was the visually impaired sports was how it made me feel. It made me feel alive, and you know that very moment of being struck by a ball on a court and realizing that my life hadn't finished was a wonderful gift. And then, you know, I had conversations with Mike saying we talked about podcasting, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to podcast, but have I got the capacity to be able to podcast? And here we are sat today. I'm not just sat here with you, Mike, but sat here with another beautiful person called Fred. And you know, I think changing lives helps remove barriers as well for me. I think, you know, when you're homeless and you walk into these programs, I think we come across lots and lots of barriers, lots of stuff that's put in our way. And Mike is the one who smashes them down or helps me smash them down. We have changed lots of stuff in the background. We have set a CIC up together, and we've come across. I mean, I don't know how you feel, Mike, but I know I found it really difficult. But I know Mike, who's sighted, has found it really difficult too. Some of the challenges and barriers we've come across, but I think they're just there to overcome. They're there for me as a strong-minded individual who's visually impaired to maybe help other people who come across them same barriers. And you know, it's funny, but we've just put in for an extra grant, so we're ready. I think we're ready to rumble now in September. We're ready to take sports into schools. I already have a couple of schools lined up. So we are going to take goal ball into schools, mainstream schools, and we're going to try and keep it as all inclusive as Mike said. We will be bringing podcasting into schools, but that's a project for the future as well. I think the main thing is to take goal ball straight into schools, which is a visually impaired sport, and give it freely to as many children as possible. This program, I can't even. I could sit and talk around changing lives for literally hours. I could. Around the impact that not just you, Mike, but the wraparound support the team have had on my life. You know, it's funny, but when I first started this process, changing lives, I was like, changing lives. I don't know whether the name's right, changing lives, but yes, the name is absolutely perfect. It does what it says on the tin. The people in the background are wonderful. I remember having a conversation with Liz, who's Mike's boss. And she was saying to me you about the Changing Lives program a couple of years ago. And here we are sat today. And, you know, personally, Mike, on this, not to blow smoke or anything, but I can't thank you enough, my friends. I really, really can't thank you enough. What Mike does as well is Mike challenges me. He doesn't take over and do all the stuff for me, but he allows me to grab hold of what I am capable of grabbing hold of. And he's there in the background as a support network. And that truly has helped me get to where I am today. So, yeah, because I've rambled on, so I think we should introduce Fred as well.
Yeah, definitely. Let's look Fred in. So, for context to our listeners or viewers, Fred is works at Emmaus Hull, and we, the Changing Lives program at Crisis, have been working with delivery partners to embed changing lives in other services to support people experiencing homelessness. So the program does work with Crisis members and across Crisis skylights, but it also works with other partners. Emmaus Hull is one of them. We also work with Emmaus Oxford, Alpha House Calderdale, the bus shelter Dorset, and Invisible Cities. And I hope there's no one else that I'm missing out, but if I am, apologies. And Fred, you have been probably about a year that you've had Changing Lives part of your services. I wondered if you could, just tell us a little bit about what the Changing Lives program looks like at your services, how it's helped, if it's helped, and that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been transformative for a couple of people's lives. I think it's vitally important to ensure the person is ready for that level of commitment. and ready for that next chapter in their life. The two people have been the sort of main beneficiaries of it, have worked incredibly hard to get to where they were. They've both been in positions of street homelessness. They've both had the issues with addiction, mental health, offending. And once they'd stabilised and once the life was in a place where they could start considering their own personal progression, it just completely removed these barriers that had been there for such a long time. One particular candidate was participant. So it was a fly. It just got me there. One particular participant was a plumber, very successful, run his own business, but his issues had escalated to the extent where he ended up in prison, followed by a prolonged period on the streets. He came to us, got the support he required, and then he said, "Look, I'm ready to start again. I'm ready. I'm ready now." And you have them serious conversations with the individual to actually ensure they are, because you want this to be sustainable. You don't want to throw money at people who aren't ready. You don't want to set anybody up to fail. But in this particular circumstance, we knew he was ready. He knew he was ready, and it enabled him to get his gas safety certifications, all very necessary. I'm not in the trade myself, so I can't recall the particular qualifications, but it enabled him to, obtain significant funding, which then enabled him to go and work. He went on a voluntary program with somebody we were working with closely, gained full-time employment, and he's still working now. And he's been in employment for approximately a year now. And it's just had a transformative effect on his life. It's enabled him to become financially self-sufficient, and more importantly, take that out of the equation. Just feel good about himself again. So you recapture a bit of self-esteem, a bit of self-worth, a bit of confidence, and these things are invaluable. They're absolutely priceless. And we've got another participant at present who's just about to start her hairdressing level 3. Again, previous experiences level 2, done really well, but then life got in the way, and it's just an unbelievable life-changing opportunity for people who think, right, I've had some very difficult times. I've gone through the adversity. I've gone through the trauma. I've gone through the hardship, but I'm ready to start again. And it's fantastic, and we're very, very grateful and very appreciative to be a partner organisation, and long may it continue.
Thanks so much, Fred.
I think it's also, Mike, I think what Changing Lives are doing is they're setting the foundation blocks for people to be able to grow. I think that's vitally important, what you've just said. Personal growth is massive, Fred, isn't it? I mean, my story is quite similar to that first guy. But it's that foundational blocks. They need to be solid. They need to be, and it's that wraparound support. Without that wraparound support, I would have probably made many mistakes without Mike, and probably wouldn't be where I am today. That's not me blowing smoke again, but I tell Mike a lot how much I show him gratitude quite a lot, because it's important that I do. But it's a wonderful, Fred, to hear the good work you're doing in the background as well, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and you're exactly right. I've had my own similar experiences, lived experiences, mental health, and I got myself in some very difficult situations throughout my life. And and again, one of the things that I think is really vitally important is it's the wounded healer concept. I think when you're going through your own personal pain, there's part of you that wants to help others, but I think it's so important to recognise where you are at personally, and know that you're in that. Because you have to be you have to be in a good place yourself to help others. You have to be strong within yourself to support others, and I think that's something that can never be undermined. And I think we can apply that very much to this grant, because when we're talking to people, they might come to us and say, "Look, I'm ready for this, I'm ready for that," and they might have some fantastic ideas, but at the core, when they're honest with themselves, they might not be ready for that big step. And I think when you're in recovery and you're trying to rehabilitate, and it's a spectrum that it could apply to anything: gambling, offending, substance misuse, mental health. It could be anything. But I think when you're in that sort of process of recovery, you have to prioritize recovery first, and that has to be the fundamental priority. And I think it's something that we have to have very honest discussions with people and say, is this are you ready? Is this the right time? And and I think between you develop a very strong working relationship with people, and you get to know them very well. And I think once you have those honest conversations, you can tell, look, he's ready to go, she's ready to go, and it's just a wonderful thing to be part of that experience, part of that journey, when you're seeing people come in at the lowest ebb, their life has perhaps sunk to a place they didn't think possible. And then once they stabilize, once they get all the help they need internally and externally, then it's like, right, well, look, we've got to look forward now. We need a target. We need something to aim for. We need aspiration. We need ambition. And when you start seeing those things return to and that individual has that glint back in their eye, it's wonderful. And to actually be able to facilitate that progress through a grant like this, it's just great, because without it, we'd have our limitations. So, yeah, we're very grateful.
I think it's on that I'd like to touch on something with the two of you, because actually the reason why I connected you both is because you both have a vision impairment. And I thought, Fred, I was actually sort of asking you, could you help Ray with some assistive devices that could help screen readers and things like that? And that's why I put you two in touch. But obviously you've spoken and actually become friends in that process. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about that personal journey that you've both been on when it comes to visual impairment. And then I guess the question to you, Ray, is why is finding the solution? Why is the CIC that you've established? Why did you establish it, I guess? Why did you set it up? What is goal? What does it mean to you? What does those sports and opportunities mean to you? But so Ray, I'll go to you first, I think.
Yeah, so the goal ball one is quite simply, I remember the impact it had on me when I first played VI Sports. I play blind baseball for GB. I've just been selected again for the GB squad. But goal ball was the first sport I played, and the impact it had on me straight away, it was like it set me alive again. It was like it set me on fire inside, lit up. And my first thought straight away was, what age does this go out? What age do children get to play this sport? And it just struck a chord with me straight away, because I was thinking, I used to love sports as a kid, and becoming visually impaired does set its own barriers. I mean, they're only challenges, they're not barriers. But I wanted to give that back. And and I've took the finding a solution, which is it says what it does on the tin. Find the solution. How do I make a child understand that their life is absolutely wonderful? How do I make a child who's sighted understand the barriers that a child who's visually impaired is going through? And that's by them playing sports alongside each other. That's by allowing them to see the challenges that they have too. And when you take goal ball into a school, we keep it very basic. We play some simple games up and over and stuff. And then when you put the shades on the children, they go quiet. And it's vulnerable because every child is in a safe space, but is all vulnerable at the same level. And that's a wonderful leveler for children. But then the next bit is we play up and over with the shades on, and you ask them, how can you do this better, do you think? And there's always one bright child. There's always one. There's always one clever one who says, we can communicate better. And I think that's something that is missing in children's lives today. Just communicating, speaking to each other on a level. But when you're playing goal ball, you need to communicate. Because what you're doing is you're painting a picture for the two players of where you are. And if people go quiet, I haven't got a clue where you are. If you speak to me all the time, I can picture where in my head I start putting you in that place. And you teach the kids to communicate, and then we play some goal ball. And I've been taking this into a school over the water in the Wirral, called Claremont, and I was absolutely blown away the last session we had with the level that the children were at. That's about the 7th session that I've done over there, and the standard was wonderful, but also just watching how much growth them children have had. Coming in, some of the children have ADHD, some of them have learning difficulties, some of them have sight loss. I have a pair of brothers who come along. One of them is sighted and one of them's visually impaired. And they play alongside each other. They actually play for Mersey Sharks alongside me now. And it's just watching that freedom. And I think it's about time for me that we started looking at the impact we can have on children's lives in a bigger picture. In lots of children are vulnerable, but not in safe spaces. And for me, my sight loss really made me vulnerable at the very beginning. And I don't know how Fred feels, but very beginning, I felt like vulnerable. I felt like sort of, would I be able to do this? Give me golf clubs away, me bike, and it was like, right, my life's over, it's finished. And it just needs that spark. It needs that spark. There's lots of stuff that I can't do, but there's lots of stuff that I haven't tried yet.
And I think it's also that, being in a fun, playful environment is naturally stimulating, but it's fun at the same time. So you're learning without trying to learn. You're just trying to have fun.
Yeah.
You're also picking up key skills around communication, interacting with people. And it is interesting, the idea of being vulnerable but in a safe space, because I guess often when we feel most vulnerable is when we feel not very safe as well at the same time. So I think that is an amazing thing to be able to do and support people with. Fred, I just wonder if I can loop you in and ask you about your personal experience, and also whether there's been whether you found sport or other ways that has where you felt more included and given you more opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I relate completely with Ray. I mean, I'm registered blind. I lost all my central vision, and again, it's a sort of similar rhetoric to Ray, where you think that's it, it's over, and it is as dark and bleak as that. Literally and metaphorically in some respects. But you start thinking, well, what do I do? And I think, given my age at the time, I didn't. There was a lot of ego involved, a lot of pride involved. I didn't want to tell people. I did everything I can to hide it. I tried to portray myself as somebody who was fully sighted to some respects, because I didn't feel emotionally ready to accept my own vulnerability. And it caused me so many problems for years upon years. And I drank heavily. I took drugs recreationally. I got into, believe it or not, it's probably not the best idea being registered blind trying to scrap, but I got into all sorts of trouble. But I was just lost. I was desperately sad, and I was grieving. I was grieving the loss of something that I felt like I couldn't live without. I played football at Gun Standard, I played for Grimsby, I played for Hull City. I'd sort of every aspiration I had required sight. It required sight to fulfill. And so on that basis, you therefore assume that's it, it's over. And I sort of spent a lot of time in self-pity, really, becoming bitter, resentful, and wanting to, I sort of had that. There's different things. Events conspire in certain ways, and then fundamentally, I recognise that if I continue in this trajectory, my life's going to be over anyway. Because I'll end up in prison, I'll end up in mental health units, I'll end up, my life will just be absolutely worthless and meaningless. And then it was just like you have that. I've been supported fantastically by different people throughout, my family, my current partner, and they actually enable you to change that philosophy of, let's not focus on what I can't do, let's focus on what I can do. Let's not think about what I haven't got, let's think about what I have got, and try and sort of have some gratitude and appreciation for these. And I had a taxi driver the other day. I'm a slight tangent, but it's relevant. And he said that somebody had said to him in the morning, like, "Are you having a good day?" And they said, "What's good about this day?" And he said, "You're up, aren't you? You're alive." It's an opportunity, and it might sound slightly cliched, but it's absolutely true. And and I think once I had that sort of, it wasn't an immediate epiphany. It was a long-term process to try and change the way I was thinking, and just be grateful for each day. And then the thing is, opportunity, when you actually are willing to take opportunities, it creates opportunities. And I'd chased all the wrong things. I suppose it was material and status and wealth, and probably to satiate my ego because I felt so unbelievably insecure. I felt so inadequate. I felt so vulnerable. So I tried to project a tough man, and I was anything but. I was pathetic, really. And then I thought, do you know what? I went to a night shelter to volunteer. Previously, I had a restaurant that didn't really go too well, and then I went to a night shelter and I volunteered there, and I saw all these people who had nothing in life, and some of them were some of the best, most inspirational people I'd ever met, who, irrespective of circumstance, always tried. And I think that's you can never be called a failure in life because you don't succeed, but we've got an obligation to try, and it really changed my perspective. And then after that, I just found this love for helping other people and supporting other people. And I got involved with offending, mental health, and I was on the right side of the fence, so to speak, this time. And it was just an incredible journey and a bit of an awakening where you think, do you know what? When you sort of
Fred, I
step
think your mic's
outside
gone
of
off.
yourself and stop being so inwardly focused. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
yeah. No, I
Have I
can
gone
hear you.
off? Oh, sorry. When you stop being so inwardly focused and others around you, you start realizing the sort of beauty and the value of life. And again, it might sound slightly cliche, but I'm blessed to do what I do now, and I'm blessed to have the life I have. I've got two beautiful, well, three, well, soon to be on Thursday. It's not too long away actually, and and I do this amazing job. I'm a deputy community leader here now, and we support hundreds of people in our region and literally helping change their lives. And again, I'm thankful for the adversity I've been through. I'm thankful for the trauma. I'm thankful for the pain because it's helped shape me become who I am. And I'm far better now than I was. I'm a better person now than I was. And I just want to keep that trajectory going.
Um, yeah, but I think there's something you said there, Fred, as well. I don't know how you feel, but my sight loss was one of the best. Well, when I look back now, probably one of the best moments of my life because it made me approach addiction. It made me approach my mental health. It made me approach being homeless and give back to them people as well. I remember sitting down with the counsellor and telling the counsellor that I had loads of fear around my sight, and it wasn't around my sight. It was around my life in general. It was around anxiety. It was around depression. It was around sort of stuff from childhood. But I remember sitting on the end of the bed, losing my sight, and thinking I either get myself clean and sober or I can't be here because there was no middle ground for me.
Hmm. Hmm. No, and I've been in a very similar position. I think, to be honest, it sounds like your epiphany was a bit more immediate, really, um, and I think that's sort of a testament to the strength you have as a character. With myself, and I don't know if it was to do with my age, my maturity. I felt like I should be in my prime, and I and I've never felt so vulnerable in my life, and I think again sometimes vulnerability you can respond to it two ways, really. You can sort of withdraw and isolate and, sort of become fearful. But I felt all those things and I felt a real inclination to withdraw and self-isolate. But there was this sort of fight that existed within me where I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to prove I was still capable. But I did it in such a detrimental way where I think there was probably a bit of an obsession with masculinity and being a bit of an alpha male and trying to sort of carry myself as somebody who was still physically capable and it just shows how my focus was so wrong. I was
Yeah,
focusing on all the things that aren't important in life. And again, it was such a sort of good position to come to when all that's rubbish. It's just rubbish. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. And really, what I should have been focusing on was developing myself as a human being. And but thankfully, I've had that opportunity, and I've been blessed to have the opportunity to learn from the countless mistakes I've made. I can't
yeah.
even begin to put a number to it. But again, they've been invaluable lessons, absolutely invaluable lessons. And as you alluded to, Ray, I'm a better person now than I ever was. And sight loss has contributed to that.
It's funny, but I think I see what's right in front of me clearer now. You said something before about gratitude, and one of my mottos is change your attitude into gratitude. See what's right in front of you. You know, we wake up, I can tell you 10 things I'm ungrateful for as soon as I open my eyes. But ask me 5 things I'm grateful for, and I have to start thinking. I think that's a mindset with a lot of people.
Okay, brilliant. So, guys, we were talking about being bitter and resentful, and obviously we were just having a laugh about it. But we work in areas where we're dealing with people with all sorts of different issues, different difficult challenges, and facing exclusion and marginalisation, which is always difficult. And so, I guess sometimes it can be a challenge, and we do feel that sort of bitterness. But I want to ask you both: what gives you hope? What gives you the opposite feeling of that sort of resentment? What gives you hope and a positive feeling? I'll start with you, Ray. I think
hope is a beautiful word. I love the word hope, and I have to remember I was hopeless a few years back, and that's the truth. And what gives me hope is helping others. Just even listening to Fred before talking about introducing the Changing Lives program into a couple of people's lives. For me, being able to help one person each day gives me hope. Being able to assist one person each day, being able to phone up somebody each day and check that they're okay, send somebody a voice note. As Fred will probably tell you, he gets a voice note every day. But being able to just be there for others, be accountable. But what gives me hope out of everything, and Fred touched on it before, is being clean and sober today. And I have to remember that my sobriety and my recovery sits at the top of this pile. The day it starts moving down the pile and other things come before it is the day the things I put before it disappear anyway. So I am full of hope today. I think it's a lovely, beautiful word, hope, isn't it? And I once heard somebody say, hope stands for help other people every day. So I'll leave it at that because I think that's a lovely little pun.
I think it's almost reasonable to feel bitter and resentful. I think it's a natural response, but that's if it's an initial response. I think once that becomes your sort of ingrained way of thinking, it will keep you unhappy. And it will keep you unhappy for an indeterminate amount of time until you change your perspective on life. And so like I get it, when things have been great and they're not, and you're adjusting, that becomes a process. But as part of the process, you have to try and move forward. And I think if you're definitely suspended in that mindset of, everything's terrible, that is just you are gonna perceive the world through the lens of negativity and start speaking a language of depression, and and it's really unfortunate, but that's where your life will stay. So I think hope is something that if you can cling on to that with both hands and keep that in your life, you've got a chance. And what gives me hope? I mean, again, I've worked in lots of environments where the ethos has been more about harm reduction, risk minimization, effectively keeping people alive, and yeah, it's a it's an absolute necessity, and it serves a very, very important purpose at the time. But no, I'm seeing the sort of the process of somebody coming in absolutely broken and demoralized and dejected and just bereft of hope. And then you're seeing that hope return. I mean, I've got somebody moving out, working in a job in a place in Hull, doing unbelievably well. I won't go into detail, for obvious reasons, but the trauma she suffered was unimaginable. And she's now approaching 2 years sober.
Yeah.
She's done, honestly, and I've got goosebumps thinking about it now.
Yeah.
And I wrote a piece on it. So I'm now witnessing people overcoming adversity on a daily basis. People standing up to the trauma, people fighting back and going on to win. And when you see that, it just engenders a sense of hope. So I don't have to fight. I don't have to fight hard to find it now because it's there before me, and it just motivates you. to be a better person. You think if they can do it, I can do it. And again, we're all like, it's a bit of a community ethos. We're all there to help each other. I know I'm employed to do it, but again, and I think having my own personal lived experience makes it a bit easier. But yeah, I think that's where my hope comes from.
Beautiful. It reminds me both of what you're saying. It reminds me there's a poem called "Hope is the thing with feathers." I don't know whether you've heard of it. The first verse goes, "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." And I think that's what you're sort of talking about. That actually it's always with us, and it's something that we can always lean in. But sometimes I guess it's more hidden than others. I recommend reading the full poem though, because it speaks.
You're recommending that to blind fellas, Mike? I just want to throw that out there.
I think words you only need to hear the words. You do not need to see them. They're beautiful when you listen to them.
No, listen, I will get into that. That sounds it's a wonderful, wonderful word. It's just something you said there, Fred, as well. I had a text off a sponsor this morning, 60 days clean. And it was just something he said, his mum and dad told him how proud they were of him. And it's made all the hair stand up on my arm, because I remember being 60 days clean. And I remember starting to feel like myself again. And I remember starting to think I can live life again. And we go from hopeless, don't we? We go from hopeless to full of hope. And I think the key is to project that onto others. The key is to give that freely, what was freely given to us. And it always starts with somebody else. I think it always starts with somebody having that conversation with you, that somebody sitting down and taking the time to just listen to you and inject that hope into you.
Can I ask you a question on that basis, Rick? When you said, going back a few minutes, you'd said I was hopeless. Do you recall a sort of defining moment when that changed?
Yes. The defining moment when that changes when I started to work my steps. But I think, if I be honest, the defining moment for me was when I sat on the end of the bed and I did make that choice that I would walk into the rooms of recovery. And I reached out to a friend of mine who had been in recovery for 6 weeks. And I reached out to him, and I knew if I asked him that I wanted to go to the meeting, I knew I couldn't back out. He's that type of friend. And I rang him, and he said to me, "I will see you tomorrow at 6 o'clock." And that was it. And I think when I sat in them rooms, Fred, and you listen to other people's stories and you can relate to the feelings, the emotions, the pain, I think that's when I didn't feel hopeless. I felt a bit of hope. And the important thing was that, and I'm sure a lot of people who are in recovery will understand this, but the important thing is not your first meeting. It's your second, because it means you've come back. And yeah, I sit in them meetings, and them meetings proper fill me full of hope on every single time I sit in there, because I watch people getting well.
Absolutely. And again, I suppose it's you're building a network as well. 12 steps obviously make a massive difference, but just not being isolated, not being excluded, not feeling marginalized, I think you can just become lost in that world, can't you? And it can happen quite quickly. And so I think, it's great to have that solidarity of people who've got similar lived experiences who are there for you and can sort of help you burst that bubble of depression that you've been stuck in for quite a while.
Yeah. But I think the other thing is when you sit in them rooms, and that moment, that defining moment, when you realise that everybody in that room wants nothing from you but for you to be well. I mean, I don't know about you, Fred, but when you're in addiction and when you're drinking a lot, all we really think about is how we're getting our next drink or our next fix or whatever it may be, and you're stuck in that cycle. So you think everyone's trying out to get you. And I remember in that room, I remember a guy who was over 10 years clean, and he just said, "Listen, all the support is in here. We in this room, we will help. We will love you till you learn to love yourself, and we will care for you till you learn to care for yourself." And it did take a period of time for that to happen.
Well, I do. I was watching something the other day, and it was talking about addiction being quite narcissistic. Now I know that's not intentional, but it was basically that the sort of governing thought is, what do I need? And that's the thing. When I look back retrospectively, I've prioritized all the wrong things above all the right things, and actually hurt those who loved me the most and cared for me the most in the process. And again, I just felt awful about that. And one of the things, I wanted to get to a place where I could look in the mirror and appreciate the reflection and actually like the person I saw. Well,
Yeah,
you get what I
I was
mean.
just going to
And
say I don't get to do that either.
yeah, but I and it was just like, metaphorically speaking, of course. But and I think that's so important. I think you have to live a life that is in alignment with who you want to be. Because I think when you're doing all the opposite things, when on a daily basis you're violating your own personal standards, your personal integrity, your core values, you'll never like yourself. And you don't look after something you don't like. In fact, you do the opposite, you destroy it. And that's where self-destruction comes in. And I just feel like it's something I did for such a long time. And part of that process was just becoming a sort of integral, decent person who had a bit of morality. And
Our moral compasses are skew if, aren't they?
yeah, absolutely.
Mike,
Absolutely.
can we throw that question back at you?
What was the question about the hope?
Yes. I mean, I know you cited a beautiful poem, but
Yeah. What gives me hope? I think I can draw hope from all sorts of different things. I think it's one thing to look at things and be bitter and resentful, and I think, like Fred said, that is a completely valid initial reaction to lots of situations. But actually, I think there's lots of areas where progress has been made over the years, lots of areas where things have been progressive, where people feel more included, and where groups of people who years ago would have been excluded maybe are now just included part of society. I think we should, obviously never lose sight of those sort of battles and never get complacent. But me, I think the key thing is that for every person who's maybe exclusive or has some negative attitudes, and where that bitter and resentment comes from, there's 100 people who want to see progress, who want to include people, who want to be supportive, and I think that's what gives me hope. Just people, I guess, give me hope, because systems might not work and things might fail people, but ultimately those systems can change, and there are people working tirelessly every day to make things fairer. Like crisis team campaigning for all sorts of changes. It took, like the Vagrancy Act, took hundreds of years to be abolished, but it was abolished, right? And I think, yes, I think those are the sorts of things that give me hope. But also, I guess, working on the program that I work in, what Fred was talking about, seeing people be able to live those authentic lives, I think that's what Changing Lives does. It says to people, what do you want to do? Not what do you think you should do, but what do you want to do? And let's work with you to do it. Let's work to achieve those goals. Live authentically. Tell me what you want to do, and let's see how we can do it. You came to us, Ray, and said, I want to be an MP. And I said, well, let's build your profile, right? Let's build a profile. I can't let you an MP overnight, but let's build a profile. Let's get your messages out there. Let people see you, and I think let's set up something where you can make a difference and have that impact. And what how can you not draw hope from that situation? How can you not be full of?
Do you think you deal
positive.
in hope, Mike? You're like a hope dealer. You deal in hope. Do you know what I mean? Me and Fred about talking about being in recovery, and my first thought is Mike's a hope dealer.
I wish I'd gone to him a few years ago. Yeah.
What a dealer to be. And I mean, like, it's funny that we talk around that, but Mike, you did feed me full of hope when I first started talking to you. You know, that first introduction to Mike, I remember feeling like it was an interview. I remember feeling like it was like I had to pass something. But very quickly, you made me feel really comfortable, Mike, and for that I'll be forever grateful. and then the hope comes then, doesn't it? So you're all right in people do deal in hope, don't they?
Yeah, no, I
I
think
want
you're
I
right.
want I want to throw something out there as well. I think Fred's only a free man for 2 days. He gets married in a couple of days, Fred. So
I do indeed. I do
I
indeed.
just want to not to be on the spot or nothing, Fred. But
Yeah.
I'd just like to throw in there. How you feeling around that?
Cool as a cucumber. Yeah, yeah. If you see my legs under the table, they're going like that. But no, do you know what? If you asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I was a nervous wreck. But I feel really really happy now. I feel confident, and that's a lie. I don't feel confident. I feel like it's going to be brilliant. But I think for me, it's the formality of it that I'm just unfamiliar with. And
Mm.
like, just doing all the sort of, just walking down the aisle, exchanging vows. It's just not me and her, and we're not doing a whole white wedding thing, but we're very sort of down to earth people. So the formalities of it, I feel slightly uncomfortable with. But when it gets to the more personal, sentimental things of speeches, dancing, all that sort of stuff, it'll be great. It'll be absolutely great. And
Hold on a minute.
just
You're
I
a bit
just
of a
want it to be
dancer.
Thursday. I know. I wondered where that came from, the dancing comment. I don't know. It just came out of nowhere. But yeah, I'm renowned for my snake hips and my liquid legs. Yeah, once I get going, there's no stopping me.
Ray,
I
Ray,
think
we
that
can't
silence
hear
that
you.
that that's
Ray's
that's that
sound's gone.
that silence speaks volumes, that doesn't it?
Yeah, all we can see
Is
is
this
you.
wedding going on YouTube? Because I want to see you dance.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how many hits it'd get. Yeah, I think I'd have to go into hiding for about 6 months if that became public.
But it just also shows, it was funny because people say about fear, and if I be honest, I was scared of everything, me. But I always remember an old timer telling me fear stands for face everything and recover. And it just shows how far you've come, Fred, doesn't it? It just shows where
Oh,
you're at in your life. It just
absolutely.
shows that you're accountable, you're reliable, you're a decent human being, which is something we strive to be, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I honestly think that's one of the most important things, as I was saying before, just, being decent, living, whatever your core values are, live them. And then you don't end up being in this like perpetual state of questioning yourself. And I think what Mike touched upon earlier, again, like, you know, where addiction's concerned, some people like the philosophy, well, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. It's connecting with something meaningful. And when you relate it to crisis and finding something, a job, a vocation, I think you really have to delve into the depths of who you are and think, I want to do something that makes me happy. I want to do something that, and you're looking then for a job, sorry, a career as opposed to a job then. And I think that's vitally important to make this sustainable because what can happen a lot of the time, I think people rush things through and think, do you know what, I'll just take anything that comes. And I don't think that's the right way to approach things. I think you have to do something that is of some real value and real meaning to you. And I think it'll have a transformative effect on your life. So it was a
There's
really
a
good point you made.
there's another quote that springs to mind just from what you're saying, Fred. And I quote other people and repurchase of other people because I've got no original thoughts myself. But Carl Rogers says that the curious paradox is that when you accept yourself just as you are, that's when you can begin to change. So I think that's what you're talking about, that authenticity and just accepting as they are so that you can then grow and just being okay
Yeah.
with that, finding comfort in that somehow. This is probably the most challenging thing though, as well, right?
No, I
Definitely.
think that is, and I think being able to look at yourself and work on yourself on a daily basis is a challenge in itself. But
Mm.
we are really, really good at running away, aren't we? I think that's something that I would love to sort of get out there. That we're all grown men sat on this podcast, and I think it's okay to not be okay. Get comfortable being uncomfortable because not every day is perfect. But there is lots and lots of people out there that we can reach out to, we can communicate with. Um, Sometimes after I often say this a lot, but when I have an idea in my head and it runs around my head, it sounds okay. But when I speak it out loud, it sounds insane. So sometimes it is really the importance of speaking to each other is so important, isn't it?
Oh, massive, massive, yeah, massive. And I think it can help, particularly in and again, it applies to everybody, but I think certainly in the male community, I mean, again, it's sort of, without getting into a dark subject, I mean, suicide's the biggest killer of men under the age of 40. And I think, again, that's because in times gone by, there was an expectation for the man to remain quiet. It was that stiff upper lip mentality. And, if you could, certainly in certain culture, I come from a working class culture, I mean, I can imagine if I approached certain people and said, I'm feeling vulnerable today, I could imagine what response I would have been met with, and it wouldn't be a favourable one. But I'm so glad that we're progressing in that respect, and we're sort of more willing to participate in conversations. I think now that is one of the things where you talked about hope and sort of attitudinal changes, societal changes. I think that's one of the biggest ones where men now do feel more comfortable. We've still got work to do, but to say, look, I'm having a bad day. And I think because it's a bit more, it's normalized now. People will say, "Yeah, well, I have actually," and that opportunity for somebody just to sit, talk, and have somebody to listen to can really have such a profound impact.
Fantastic. Right, I guess we're towards the end of this podcast. And
I think so. Otherwise, people may need to take like a week off work, mightn't they?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But,
exactly.
I think there's a capacity of doing a podcast with the three of us, maybe because you know what, we'll see how it goes when it goes out, guys. But I think there's a capacity of us just doing this once every 3 or 4 months and just having a chat. I think we may have touched on. Maybe people who watch it and listen to it can give us some feedback on YouTube too. Would just like to see more of me, Mike, and Fred, the three amigos.
No. The jar is out. The jar is out.
And if you do want to see more of us, please tell me and Fred what we look like.
Yeah, I'd be very appreciative. Yeah, I've had mixed. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I've had different things.
Fred, you look like the lead singer out of Blair to me.
And don't tell them what I look like. Don't tell them what I look like, because I've been telling them that I'm 6'3", tall, dark, and handsome. So they're going to know the lies if you tell them what I really am.
Mike told me I look like
blind, Michael. We're not stupid. Come on, Mike.
Michael told me I look like Les Dennis before we went on there.
Oh, do you know what, guys? It's been an absolute pleasure, though. As always, listen, we do these because they're inspirational interviews, and I could sit on this all day with you. I really, really could. The both of you inspire me. The both of you fill me full of hope. And also, you both challenge me, and I love that. So I'd like to thank the both of you from the bottom of my heart.
It's a pleasure, Ray. Thanks so much for having us on.
No, thank you. And, and I appreciate Mike for introducing me and Ray. And I think, it's forged a friendship. So it's, I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you. Speak soon. Bye. See you later.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers.
I'm not gonna lie, guys, but welcome back. I could have spoke to Mike and Fred for another probably 2 hours, and I do believe there is an opportunity of us three maybe doing a podcast once every 3 months and putting it out there and maybe calling it something different. Fred, what a beautiful human being, and I wish him the best of luck on his wedding. Probably by the time this podcast is out there, Fred may be a married man. But, Fred, inspirational. Mike introduced us. And the very first phone call I had with Fred, I was just like, wow, yeah, this guy's cool, man. This guy inspires me. And I asked him straight away, would he come on the podcast? And Mike, obviously, he works for Crisis UK. He works in the Changing Lives, but I class him as a friend too. These are two very, very important people in my life. And I often say this, but be aware of the people who are doing stuff for you around you. Be grateful. Don't be afraid to tell them what they mean to you. Don't be afraid to show them how much you care. It's wonderful, innit? Life is a journey, and it's, you know, we've all got the same destination, but let's make the journey as beautiful as possible together. So, guys, we're going to keep on bringing you inspirational interviews. We're going to keep on talking about topics that are close to my heart and also to other people's. Yeah, and we'll let the podcast flow. We'll let it find its own path, and have the most amazing, wonderful day, guys. And we will see you next month. Finding the Solution. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. Oh, one last thing as well before we go. So next month, I will be walking the 3 Peaks. So the podcast may go out a little bit earlier next month. I'm walking the 3 Peaks on the 18th of September. I will put a GoFundMe page up. This is all for Finding the Solution, the charity. And we go into the schools in September. So I'll put a GoFundMe page, guys, and every pound helps, every penny helps. And we are going to take some VI sport into schools. And I'm really, really excited. This is a wonderful journey that we're on, and it's the beginning of a journey. And I want you to all follow me and come along, and I want you to be a part of this. So, yeah, from me, I'd like to thank every single one of you for watching, for joining, for pressing play. Feel free to comment on YouTube, and yeah, have an amazing, wonderful, beautiful day, guys. One foot in front of the other, and keep striving to be a better person.